Hello and welcome to the Good, Bad, or Bullshit podcast. I'm the Joe Rogan of this podcast, Bo Schwartz, and joining me, as always, is the Sam Harris of this podcast. It's Michael Hodgins. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hello, Bo. A little housekeeping to start here.
And
that's how Sam Harris starts every episode of his podcast.
That's true. Oh yeah, that is true.
Also, and then it goes on for 10 minutes. He's like, well, as some of you may know, my podcast has been free for some time, but I've been I won't go on for 10 minutes. As Sam Harris
God, stop him.
That's exactly what it is.
And listeners, that voice you're hearing is it's the Crofton Steers of the show. Crofton Steers.
Oh, I knew it, Bo. Good, well played. I was going to give you shit for ripping off my intro style, but then when you gave me the best personality of the three, yeah. I knew.
I was trying to find the biggest moron in podcasting, but I spent so little time before the show prepping that I'm like, well, we'll go with Crofton.
Thank you, Bo.
Because it's fitting, because you would definitely think that you were the best. So
that's true.
It's true. It's true. I actually wish that I had done that intro, so I give you full credit, and I would have used the same personalities.
Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah, it's about right.
I'm probably not like Joe Rogan though. I'm probably more like Joey Diaz.
I don't know who Joey Diaz is, but I don't know.
He's often on the show, and he talks about farts and has all kinds of weird stories.
Maybe you'd be the Scott Johnson.
No, Scott's uniquely himself. Definitely distinct there.
I would just like to say, because I heard on another podcast that you can keep saying Happy New Year until you do it on your podcast. So, like, being that it's our first podcast of the year and probably will be released in April, that's a slam on Bo. I'm going to say Happy New Year to all our listeners and to you guys.
Stop dating our show. It's not the first podcast of the year. The first podcast of the year was the Amazon podcast.
But it feels like it's been 1 year since we recorded.
I would like to point out, because when I was listening to the Amazon podcast the other day, it was it starts with a giant conversation about the precise moment in time it is actually being recorded. Bo's like, so they revealed the Cybertruck, and Mike's like, there's snow on the ground. Winter is just getting started, and we're heading into the Christmas season.
But which Christmas? It could have been 2018, could have been 2019. You don't know, Crofton.
I guess not.
Well, there was no Cybertruck. Cybertruck is distinctly a 2019.
Oh yeah, that's true. All right, okay, you screwed up, Bo. What can
I could say Happy New Year at any point during this year. You know, it could be the first time I see someone.
I don't think it's a new year in February. I think it's the year.
No, it's still a young year.
I don't. Okay,
I see what he's doing.
Sure. Okay,
I see what he's doing there. We're like in mid-January. He's like, yeah, I don't think it's a new year in February when I'm planning to release this joint. But no, I screwed it up for you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You didn't screw anything up. I don't know what. It's my shame and guilt. It's on me, everyone. It's on me.
And not only, it is interesting because it's also the decade, the new decade, the 2020s. It's funny because
for some people, there's a breed of flat earther who doesn't believe that this is the last year of the decade. That they think 2020 is the last year of the decade.
I guess depending how you want to count, but whatever.
Year zero is not a year according to some calendars.
It's funny because 2020 is one of these years. It's almost like the year 2000 was, where people would as you push the year 2000, people who were trying to be futuristic would be like 2000. Now that's of course 20 years ago. And I work in the federal government, which I think we just got upgraded to Excel 2014 or something like that. We're like, oh my God, yes, we're no longer on 97. It's so behind the time. And I remember they always had this thing. It's always a joke in the government of innovation 2020. I was always thinking, I was like, yeah, we'll see how innovative they get by 2020. Now 2020 has come, and I've seen zero change in anything that they were like.
You can't see change when it's happening all around you, Mike. It just happens from one day to another. Also, they've rebranded that as Beyond 2020.
Have they? Because They were like, "Oh, we somehow missed our deadline. That's never happened before in the federal government."
It was Blueprint 2020, and now it's beyond 2020.
Yeah, it was like because my dad, for some reason, got on the bandwagon of the 2000 stuff. My dad had a landscaping company, and for some reason, at one point, he called it something like. His name's Richard, and he always went by Dick, which is, of course, because he's
Dick of all trades. I had the pleasure
Dick of all trades. But at one point, it was like Dick 2000 or something like that. And I was like, why? And he was just like trying to get on the. It wasn't like he was a tech company or anything related to the. And that went on for a few years until you realize that, like, oh yeah, that's the 2000 thing's done now.
Well, but people use thousands to make products sound cool. Like I was on cyberpowerpc.com. Just window shopping for computers, and the series were like, Smooth Series 1000, Smooth Series 2000, Smooth Series, the different thousands just denoted better specs of the computer, right? So,
but when it's cool,
it's meaningless. It's just flavor. It's just flavorful text to name a product. So that's what your dad was doing. He's like, you should have seen Dick 1000. He was good, but he's nothing like Dick 2000.
It happened in the year 2000, so like he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm up with the speed," but then it's so quickly dated and irrelevant.
It's also like
he can be Dick 2000 next.
He does interlock stone.
It had nothing to do.
He's not a tech company or anything.
He can rebrand his company every year. Like how like FIFA games and NHL games, it's like NHL 2K, NHL 2017. Like, he could just do it every year. It's Dick 2017.
Yeah, or like the government just beyond 2020.
Beyond Dick.
Beyond Dick. Beyond Dick 2000.
I think he still never got the whole penis.
If he made a T-shirts of Dick of all trades or Beyond Dick 2000 or whatever, I would have bought those T-shirts.
Right
But I just want to say,
I saw a client laugh at him while he was saying, what's the company name? Dick of all trades. And your dad was as straight faced as if seen a human being, and the client's like laughing. He's like, really? And he's like, yeah.
Dick of all trades. I do many things.
Because in his head, he just doesn't hear the other thing. He just hears it'd be like if it was like Crofton 2000. That's all he would hear. It's like, oh yeah, it's just someone's name 2000, so they're really up to date.
Yeah. I was able to put that company name on my CV. And I got asked about it in an interview. He's like,
really?
I see here, Mr. Schwartz, you went to Queen's University. Actually, I wrote Kingston University, and I was like, oh, that's a mistake. It's supposed to be Queen's.
Kingston University.
I was embarrassed about that one, but I was not embarrassed about Dick of all trades, because then it was like, and what is Dick of all trades?
Well, I had to pay the money while in college,
Yeah.
So
I'm like, that's an interlock and landscaping company. Wink, wink. Like,
did you get that job?
I did.
It's funny because they're looking at the CV like, well, doesn't know the name of the university he went to, worked for Dick of all trades. Yeah, sounds like a prime candidate.
The worst part is he's the best one today.
Basically, yeah, it's funny. Anyways,
just about 2020, it is one of those years. To Mike's point about like futurism, it's I think there was a news article when we passed the date of Blade Runner, which I think was in January 2020 or late 2019, whatever, of the original Blade Runner. Okay. And it is just funny because like 2020 was for sure a year where you would think about like when you're writing science fiction in the 90s or 80s, you're like, oh man, that is the future. That's so far away. But then in reality, it's not that far. It's not quick. Like, yeah, it does. I guess to that effect, if you went back like 30 years in the past, you're in the 1960s to the 1990s, and there's a ton of progress between that time. So there's no reason you wouldn't expect there would be a ton of progress, but it's still crazy. Everybody gets hung up on flying cars. There's like, where are flying cars? But but aside from flying cars, like we have got a lot of what I thought the future would look like when I was a kid. And we just take it for granted because it happened so incrementally, Well,
and the shift, like, because it's like if you think about like the year 1900 and then the year like 1960, so like 60 years. What happened? Like in 1900, it's like you had your horse, taking you to the town, and then in 1960s there was rockets going to the moon. That's crazy, And then in the 60 years that followed that, which brings us to now, it's kind of like, well, there's still airplanes. There was airplanes then. There's still rockets that, well, they don't really go to the moon anymore, but we're getting there. And it's like, it's really because all that shift that has happened, which has been a lot, has just been this like computer tech stuff, which is less like sort of impressive in a way when you look at the society. Now it's like, oh, people are just looking at their phones, posting on social media. They didn't do that 30 years ago. But it's like when you had a horse and then in some years someone was flying in a rocket ship in space. That's a crazy difference. So I just feel like it's a bit more subtle, though I do agree that it's a lot of
we are making the planet warmer.
Yeah, we're fucking things up more.
I think that's where.
To be fair, humans always fuck things up. So we just now have the information at our fingertips to know how badly we're fucking things up. True. So that makes us more stupid because we're ignoring it.
Yeah, and we know that it's true. We know history well enough to know that we're fucking up, and we're like, man, well, we can't stop it. Let's just move ahead.
When people would be smoking, like you'd be watching Mad Men, you'd be like, why do people not think like I'm inhaling fire smoke, like that's probably not good for me? And I'd be like, no, people just didn't think about it or whatever, or most people didn't think about it until science revealed, oh wait, that kills you. And then nowadays when you see somebody smoking, you're kind of like way more judgy because you're like, that person knows better and is still doing this dumb thing, Bo. But climate change is like smoking for the planet. We're just like, now we know we shouldn't quit smoking, but instead of getting on even starting vaping, we're like full on smoking.
But it's funny because it's also the same thing, because it's like, yeah, we know smoking's super bad, and then a lot of people kind of like quit, and a lot of people are like, well, whatever. And it's like climate change is the same thing. You're like, we're destroying the planet. A lot of people are trying to do what they can reduce, governments are trying to do something, and a lot of people are like, you know what, fuck it. And that's like, it's
let it burn.
It's just humanity, right? It's like, some people are like, hey, let's do this. Other people are like, oh, yeah, well, maybe. And then other people are like, nope, I won't. And that's just how it is.
No,
it's true.
Really depressing.
Yeah, well, it is depressing. So speaking of depressing, wait, am I hosting?
Bo is the host.
I introduced the show, so I think
introduced the show. But I have a topic.
Oh, do you want to get started?
Yeah, we've been chatting for like how long now?
Right.
About nothing.
Can you chat for like 2 more minutes?
All right. So gentlemen,
how about them local sports team?
Yeah, it's sports.
I'm
often thankful that I don't give a shit about sports, because it's like I just feel like it's a cause of stress that people invite into their lives for no reason. They're like, their team loses. Like my dad was watching
or
football.
Excitement.
My dad, that's it. My dad was watching football the other day. Apparently, there was this big upset. Who was it?
Yeah.
Kansas City came back.
The Titans upset the Patriots?
No, it was Kansas City versus Houston.
Where they were, yeah.
Oh, they're way down, and they came way back up.
They were down like 26-0, and they 28
way
to
back.
26. Yeah.
It was a huge comeback. But my dad, who is like a big time gambler on sports, he's like yelling at the thing. He's like, God, because he had bet on Kansas City to win, and he's in this thing called a suicide pool. So it's like if your team loses, you're out.
Dick.
It's kind of interesting. It's like you can only pick a team once in the whole playoff run. So you have to pick someone to win, but you have to hope that person doesn't win the Super Bowl, because you'll never win that. It's really weird. So anyways, he had Kansas City, and then Kansas City was down, and he was all stressed. I was like, God damn, Kansas. He had a sheet, like, because it's like his gambling sheet. He tore it up and threw it in the garbage, and he was all angry and stressed out. And then Kansas City came back, and he was like, yes, go Kansas City. And he was screaming at the TV. And I'm like, man, that guy's cortisol levels are going through the roof. And now it's
tore
like
up
emotional.
His ticket.
He had another copy apparently.
I will say though, he's, to your sports being stressful, just being a fan of a team and being emotionally invested in them is stressful, but
Is
once you start gambling on sports, you're actually deciding to make it like, hey, let's make this a little bit more exciting. But like at the same point, you're making it way more stressful.
Way
I have
more
money
stressful.
on this game.
Yeah, that's my
Like,
dad's MO. Also, him
Yeah.
tearing up the ticket if it had been because he said that he's like, I ripped up my sheet because I didn't actually see him do it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like something you would do, because he has a story. I might have told you guys this before. When he was a young man, he went to Florida. We live in Canada, as people listening to the show might know. He went to Florida, and then when he crossed the Florida state line, he said he cut off the legs of all the pants that he owned. Because he's like, I'm in Florida, baby, it's hot. But then he's like, then it was like 10 degrees for a bunch, so it was kind of, because it was the winter time in Florida, so like it does get cool. It doesn't get cold, but it gets cool that you might
Like
enjoy
maybe
having
he
a
could
pair
have
of-
bought some shorts and also I just had a mix of both rather than cutting them
Or I would've
all,
been
or
like-
just cut one pair.
Yeah, just one pair. Like, he cut them all off and threw them away. He's like, won't do these ever again. I'm like, yeah, that's my dad. Super rash and not thinking.
He's
ahead.
like,
I got this
comic book
mental
character.
image of your dad like walking down the street in like Fort Lauderdale and getting accosted by like different men being like, I want what you're selling, and it's just your dad in like jeans that he's cut off and a
Super
t-shirt
short.
a t-shirt super short and a t-shirt that says Dick of all trades on it.
Or would have said like, Dick of all trades, 1975.
Yeah, established 1975 with high cutoffs. Or like, hey baby, what you got going on? He's like, what? Why is everybody so friendly? Ah.
All right, has
All
that
right,
been enough
speaking
time?
of friendly
Both?
people, yeah. I'm just you talking. You're reproaching me like I'm the one that won't stop talking. All right.
No, I was like, let's do topic. You're like, no, 2 more minutes of random blabber.
Okay, here comes the bird. It's flying in, and it's delivering Michael's topic selection.
into my hand. Thank you, Bird. Now let me open the envelope. I think, this topic, I think is going to resonate with you guys. In fact, I'm kind of counting on you guys to hold this one up because I actually don't know too much about this. But okay, so the topic is lingo. Lingo. So lingo.
Maybe the lingo ate my baby.
Lingo being in group sort of
I
terms.
mean jargon, vernacular.
Lingo. So okay, I'll give you a couple of examples because and the reason I brought this up is kind of funny, but I feel like you guys are going to know more than I am about this because I sort of am anti-lingo. This doesn't mean I don't like it.
Mike,
I don't know.
anti something Crofton.
He's an anti-linguist.
I it's
Lingo
more like
seems like lingo of something.
So, well, look, I'll give you some examples. So, I do rock climbing, as you guys know. There is a lot of rock climbing lingo, okay? And people who do the rock climbing start speaking this lingo. And when I say I'm not into it, like I just don't, because I don't I'm like, why do people use this lingo? But as you guys know there's a lot of gaming lingo. There's a lot of like work lingo. So I'll just give you a couple examples.
You don't mean technical terms though, right?
No.
Like say in rock climbing, belaying is a technical.
Yes.
Like it's
okay.
a term.
So this is what I will tell. Okay. So and it drives me kind of nuts because I'm like because I climb at different. I have some regular climbing partners, but sometimes I climb with random people at the rock climbing gym we see all the time, and they'll be using the lingo, and it always annoys me because they're like so when you tie in and you're about to climb, they're like, okay, man, send the route. And I'm always like, send it where? And then they're like, because that means climb it. So if you climb the route successfully, you send it. That's what it is. And I'm like, why is it that? And I'm just like, and then there's one guy was going super lingo on me where I didn't understand anything he was talking about. He's like, oh yeah, you sent it, man. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you sent it. He's like, in fact, you flashed it. And I was like, flashed it? And I was like, what does that mean? And then he's like, flashing is when you send a route on your first try. So if you go up to climb a route and then you climb it on your first try, see how you guys understood that very clearly when I said you climb a route on your first try? You wouldn't say that in lingo. You'd say you flashed, you sent it, and then you flashed it, because
Mhm.
that's lingo
I
to say
gotcha.
what I just said in
Yeah,
actual
yeah.
English.
Okay, so
And
yeah,
then,
the lingo's okay. I get it a little bit more
and then I
because
come down,
hello.
he's like, hey, you got any beta for me? And I was like, and I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, you know, beta, like some intel. And I was like how to climb it. And he was like, yeah, like what should I know? I'm like, well, those holds are hard, and then the other ones are easy after it. But so beta is a term from tech stuff, right? You're beta testing something, or people use in rock climbing to say, like, how do you climb the thing? There's tons of it in rock climbing, and I don't really understand it because there's perfectly good words that everybody knows that also
Is
describe
beta
that thing
really? They use beta in rock climbing?
all the time in rock climbing, and
It
I do
seems
not
like a wrong
understand it.
use of beta.
Tell that to the rock
It
climbing lingo
seems like
people.
the wrong.
And
Like,
okay, so
beta is a stage of testing and development.
no, in rock climbing, it's the information about a climb
Yeah, they're
that
using the
someone
word
else gives
beta
you.
wrong. So
You're giving that climb was a beta test, Bo.
they sound like
You
they
wouldn't
sound like
say beta test.
a bunch of noobs. I mean,
That-
there's also
so-
beta males, but I know that also doesn't poetically apply. I don't know.
So
what
the funny
source
thing about and why I
the
figure you guys
etymology.
know, Bo in particular lives in a whole lingo world of gaming. So he'll say GG to me after this podcast, and I'm always like,
Sure.
so I know
it's
what
good
GG
game,
means.
but
Yes,
GG.
but we just
we
recorded
say
a
GG
podcast.
because you don't type out good game every freaking match because it takes 8 letters when you can just type 2 letters.
Okay, but when you say it as a salutation, so we're not playing a game. We're doing a podcast, and it's over. And you're like, hey, GG, everybody. It's lingo that exists in a community.
Yeah, right.
And that's what the topic is.
Yeah, and
lingo.
it's an inside nod, like when they did the Power
Yes.
Rangers marathon on Twitch, where you would watch. They were marathoning the entire run of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and even Bob Ross. They did the entire run of Bob Ross the television series.
Yes.
At the end of each episode, the Twitch chat would be filled with GG as if it was a game, but it wasn't a game. It was just the end of the episode.
Just because it's the
But
lingo.
The lingo, everyone thought it was funny to ironically say GG as if it was a video game match because it's on a video game site.
I
Yes,
got
Joe.
a couple of thoughts on this right off based on your exchanges and conversation. Which one is that this lingo tends to come from the same world as abbreviations in the sense that it's often shortening
Otherwise known
something.
as abbreves.
Yeah, abbreves. Yeah, abbreves. Yeah. So no joke. That's 100% it. Like, obviously, send is likely ascend. I'm going to ascend this thing or whatever, and it's like,
Well-
let's just make it send. Send.
No, it's
wait,
not because.
Well, let me finish my point,
go
and
on,
then
go on.
you can correct my lingo later. But generally, it's always about making like Bo's GG good game. Like even the writing of good game every time, it's like the ritualistic nature of it is that is one thing. So. But shortening, so people are shortening terms. They're saying them all the time. They're shortening them. So, and then it becomes like this thing that demonstrates that you are in the know. So it becomes this element of cultural awareness. You are in the culture. I almost think it would be hilarious if Mike taught me all the rock climbing vernacular in lingo in very minute detail, and then I would go to a rock climbing gym and use it all but have my climbing skill, which is nothing, and be like, I'm gonna flash this one, send it up, let's go, and then be like on the base of the wall. So that's
And everyone's gonna be, if you needed more beta.
But I also think that like when you hear somebody else's subculture's lingo, it sounds ridiculous. Like, so Mike is explaining the lingo.
Unless it sounds cool, you might hear lingo.
Yeah,
like, that's
maybe.
amazing.
I know a lot of ski lingo and stuff like that, and I always like my brother will tell me this stuff, and I'll be like, I'll roll my eyes. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, ski lingo. There's a lot. But what I was going to interject with the thing was that in skiing, if you go off a cliff, you say "send it." Gonna send it, man. Send it, bro. So they're not. Oh, maybe they're descending. Oh, so it is a short.
Whatever. All I'm saying, all I'm saying is that like when Bo heard talk about lingo in his domain, he immediately
I
took
only
a
have
defense.
one. I've got lots of domains.
Yeah, but you were a bit defensive.
He was
you're like,
immediately somewhat defensive, started mansplaining it to you and stuff like that. Went over details because it was that's the lingo part of his world. But I'm the same way. Like if you were in my domain and you were talking about that sort of stuff, I would be like, well, this and this. I might defend the use of these sort of terms because it's part of my culture. Whereas when you hear the other lingo terms from other groups, you're like, God, that sounds so stupid. I'd feel dumb if I was in that, like sending
Let's
rock climbing.
Let's talk about mansplaining.
But wait, the topic is lingo.
That's lingo. That's not mansplaining is not a real word. It's woke culture lingo.
Yeah, I guess, but it's a bit different than I don't
lingo.
think it's lingo.
You can look at the word mansplaining and say exactly what Crofton said.
Well,
it sounds stupid.
I remember,
it's part of a circle of people who are into shaming others for, for being chauvinists or being insensitive men or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, look, there's lingo everywhere in any kind of subculture, and it's exactly what Crofton said. It's basically you're signaling to the other people who you're like, I know the code. I'm in. I'm one of you guys, and it's and I guess I'm like, because the thing is like, so rock climbing or skiing for that matter, like I'm into those things. Like now I'm a little bit of a person who likes to be against the grain just on principle, which is I think why I resist using lingo. Like I'm into rock. I've been rock climbing for 20 years. I like rock climbing. I go rock climbing twice a week. I hate the lingo because it's dumb. And it's like, and to me, like the only value I see in it is it showing other rock climbers that like, hey, I like rock climbing too. Though that should be self-evident as we're both rock climbing at this moment, so we must like it. But it's not enough for that to happen. It's like you have to, and it's just so interesting. It's like, I think it's like tied to just how culture develops. And like, these are all subcultures, and it makes you almost think like how different cultures in different areas, like it's like when you see lingo, especially
tribes. I mean, it doesn't require a big explanation. Sure. There are tribes in humanity,
there you go.
And you identify other people in the tribe sometimes by their dress, by the symbols, by your gods, or by the language they use.
For sure. That's it. And like, it's funny, Mike's talking about groups. I'm like, oh yeah, my parents were big into windsurfing. Windsurfing had their whole thing. We did scuba diving. Remember we would do scuba diving and they would have have all their like scuba diving lingo. And I'm like, there's technical terms. Don't get me wrong.
Technical terms are different.
There's technical terms, but there's also like in rock climbing, they have the levels of the walls, whatever they are, and terms that you use. But then there's just words that are like, yeah, they are not virtue signaling, but signaling that you are part of the tribe. Like,
like I was always pointing at one, because sometimes you end up using them because there was one, because I also work in the federal government, and there's like lingo that goes around the federal government. There was one, it was always like, and not just federal government, but like professional circles. Like people love using writ large. Writ large has really had a moment. I think it's a little bit on the way out, but everyone was like, writ large this, writ large that. There's a whole bunch of them, and it's a way to say like, I'm a professional, you're a professional. Here we're talking about professional things. It's like it forms in cultures, work cultures too, and it's just like, but it's just interesting when you start to notice them. Where, because the thing is, it's like, it makes me wonder, like, are they serving value beyond just saying, hey, I'm in the group, hey, I'm in? Because it's like, because all it does is if you don't know the lingo, it excludes you. So like when some of these rock climbing terms that I know a bit now, though still kind of refuse to use on principle, at some point, like I legit, like when I was describing earlier, did not understand what these people were talking about, because they could have just said, oh, you climbed it first try. Great. But that's not the lingo. So all it does, it seems to me, what it mostly does is exclude others.
But it also makes things shorter, quicker, easier to use. If you're always using the same terms over and over, even that writ large one, is like, is there a faster way to say what you're saying there? Maybe there is, but
I mean, it basically means the big picture. Which
I don't
people
think
would
that's
say
why we do it. I think we do it because a certain percentage find it cool.
Yeah,
it's just cool. Fun. Like it's just fun to have coded language that also, to Crofton's point, does efficiently communicate ideas and also serves as tribal signifier.
But it's short, like your GG thing. Not only that, like noob, say calling people a noob or whatever. Essentially, it's an insult to say you're a beginner at the game, and like you're a beginner or you're a and then it gets short and then you're a noob
well, I guess newbie is what it's short for.
Yeah, and then it was like at one point it was just nub, NUB, or what a nub.
Is that what it's evolved into?
Well, no, I mean,
noob is like 20 years old too. We're talking ancient lingo. Like noob still gets used, but it's like also.
But
it has broken through a little bit into the common.
I think
vernacular.
if someone wanted to insult you in gamer culture now, they'd call you a cuck. That's a cuck.
But isn't that from like the alt-right stuff?
Well, a cuckold is a person who allows them to be emasculated by their wife, up to and including letting other men fuck them while they watch. So you're a cuckold, which is the full words. But now you just say, you're a beta. But it comes from cuck. See, we have beta. Gamers have beta too. You're a beta cuck.
But like there's just been a couple like Snoob, having which is big in the game, and having been a gamer at some point in my life, like it's sort of in my head as a thing. It's like it makes sense to say, oh, he's a noob. And I've definitely, I don't know, but there's some context at work where I was talking to some like 50-year-old women, and I said that, and I was kind of like, I had to be like, I remember being like, I wonder, do they quite know what that means? And I wasn't sure if they did, and they looked a bit. So then it's kind of like, because you can get into
there is a generational gap there. But I was watching a children's show with my kids the other day, and they used the term noob.
Really?
Like on
what
the show, Trolls. It's super funny actually, but it's not about internet trolling, Bo. Just to clarify that. It's about cute trolls with multicolored hair.
It's funny if we're talking about internet trolls. It's just like super horrible stuff for kids.
It's like
sorry. Go finish your story about trolls.
Oh, it's just
talk about this great television show for kids.
The main girl is like big into like kindness and hugs, and there's this crotchety old troll, and she's always trying to make him more into hugs, and he's a hugging noob essentially is the use. So when I heard that, I laughed. It's like, oh, they're using noob, are they? So
she's trying to turn him into a cuck. Like, why don't you be less mean and give hugs?
That's horrible. It's a children's show, Bo.
Yeah.
So no, you can see your point now. Sorry, you jumped in.
Oh, well, what I was going to say was we're talking a lot about gamer stuff, but I'm not a big fan of gamer stuff. It's kind of funny when the waterfall of chat's going by and everyone goes Omega lol, because that's definitely very that. I'm not going to explain it, but the one I wanted to bring up where I really like lingo for me is poker. Poker's got some like it's like you meet someone that just lost and like, oh, they got a bad beat. And, bad beat has a very specific meaning. It doesn't just mean losing. It means losing from a very favorable position to someone who plays suboptimally, like a bad beat. And if someone sucked out on you, that's where you were the favorite and you had the winning hand when the cards were flipped, but there were more cards to be drawn. And then they sucked out. Oh, my antivirus is popping up. Everyone can see that on the video.
I just want to point out that
hang on. I'm not done. When you get sucked out on, that's when they don't even have a hand, and they make it from the drawn cards, and they probably had low odds of sucking out on you, but they managed to do it. You have your hand, but then the first three cards of the flop, turn, river, they've got names, and it's just like what you're talking about. And I find not only is speaking about poker terms pleasurable, but it's also efficient, because saying you got sucked out on, I immediately know it's a very specific set of conditions that you can use two words with, and it fits. Like there's a sucking of the cards from the deck onto the table. I'm gonna keep saying sucking as many times as possible because it's killing Crofton right now.
It's affecting Crofton.
He's like, I love sucking. You're making me. It's so evocative. I'm picturing it right now.
his first term was like the bad beat or something like that,
Yeah.
or the bad. And I was just like, I'm gonna show maturity and avoid making a masturbation failing joke.
Yeah,
or
a bad
something
beat
like
is
that.
when there's somebody in the other room and
I'm
that you think they can hear you.
Yeah, I'm totally not going to do it. I'm going to show my maturity level, and then the next one had to be that sucking out one, and I was just like, "Oh fuck, I can't hold it together now." At this point, I will say that for poker, like again, it's the technical terms. So stuff like the flop or the river, all of that sort of stuff. I feel like that falls within the technical vernacular of poker, whereas the stuff like those expressions that you said, that would be more lingo.
Or calling someone, there are terms for players. You could be a shark, a whale, or a donkey. So a donkey is their version of someone who's like plays and is like, and just like they're supposed to fold because the situation for an experienced player is that you should fold there. A donkey's just going to keep calling. They're just going to keep calling. They're going to call you all the way down the river, and they're not going to read your telegraphed like plays because they're just like, whatever, call, because they're of low intelligence, right? So
that'd be me.
Donkey is.
I just want to say, you talking about that and like just hearing all the terms and it does make me more positive on lingo, and partly due to the I don't want to say I have a high interest in language, but making stuff more colorful as opposed to more bland and sort of sanitized does have an appeal. Like, if you go to another country and they're speaking a different language, there's something more exotic about that than going to a country where they're just going to be speaking English to you, or English is the mother tongue. Even if the Americans that come to Canada and they're like, oh, you say this, or you have this expression, or like the way you pronounce bagels is weird. I don't know. Everything, the little exoticness of our Canadian lingo is appealing to them. So I will say that, like, as much as I don't like the lingo for to demonstrate how cool you are, how in you are, like, but lingo for like enjoyment's sake, language sake, sort of, I appreciate more that poker stuff. I kind of appreciate more, like, although I would ask everyone to explain it to me.
Card games tend to have it more than anything else because it's like the same deck of cards, but each game has its own tribal subculture. Like in euchre, by the way, what the hell is a euchre? There's the trump card. Trump meaning, the trump card,
but that's technical. I think that's
trumps this. But the thing is, it's all made up flowery words. Like there's the right bower and the left bower, and then there's going alone. Like and it's there's like it's lingo subsized of all of it. Like there's jargon, but then there's also the vernacular of just like the things that people say that aren't like formalized.
Yeah, I mean,
like it's all of
for
it.
euchre, I'm not. I mean, maybe that stuff certainly might have its origins in lingo, and that's certainly an interesting thing about lingo. For sure, at some point it just becomes codified into something, and it's no longer lingo. It's just part of the language. But like when you talked about poker and all those things, like that was for sure lingo. Like, because I'm like, I've played poker. I know a lot of these. I know how to play, but that stuff, that was lingo, and it's like, it's different. And it is funny when you see lingo like becoming just sort of like the accepted language for something. Like I have this pet peeve, as you guys know, I have many a pet peeve about stupid things. But so in like music lingo, no one ever releases an album anymore. What do they do with their albums? You know what they do?
They drop them.
They drop them. Drop it like it's hot.
But they don't. They also don't release albums. They drop playlists now. Mike,
is that what it is? It's like, but it's always just like, my new EP's about to drop. That's my impression of a musical artist. Yo, check it out. My new EP's gonna drop, and then everyone wants to check out that hot single that dropped. Just like, so at some point that was clearly lingo.
Even check it out is lingo. Like you don't check out anything. You buy it and listen to it. checking out, like I don't
For sure.
I don't examine it for imperfections, whatever checking something out means.
But I guess part of it is like being old enough. Yeah, because that's the thing. It's like is this stuff transitions. Like I'm sure at some point, like dropping for albums will just be like that. No one will ever be like, oh, they used to say released albums or published albums. What? And it's like you say, check it out. I'm like, yeah. For me, that's just part of like sort of North American English language. But yeah, for sure, at some point, that was some lingo that half the people were like, what are you talking about? And it just became a common parlance.
I had a funny conversation today where someone said, holy liftin'. And then I said, holy liftin', that's a Pontiac. Like, that's like an old... But it's regional. I don't think you go to Florida and say holy liftin' and everyone goes like, oh. like and then but she didn't even say holy liftin'. She said holy Lipton. Like Lipton cup of soup, and I'm like, it's not holy Lipton, it's holy Lipton, and she's like, no, it's holy Lipton. And then a third person chimed in and said, I've heard it used both ways, and I'm like, so there's a holy Lipton and a holy Lifton, and I can't tell you which is right. I just know which I've heard a lot, which is the Lifton.
I guess.
Yeah.
I just want to parse aside two things here, which is the expressions and evolving language, and when stuff is kind of sort of mainstream and things change, and regional stuff, like going to England and they have their expressions, and going to like to separate that a little bit from, I think, lingo, which is more associated in my mind, or at least the way we've been having this conversation with groups and activities and stuff like that, as opposed to, ethnicities and culture.
Regional dialects.
I guess everybody has their own lingo. Like, yes, yeah,
but say, lingo is a part of lingo. Like,
yeah, I guess it is British lingo. Like, if I said,
it's more like the thing with lingo. It's kind of like you use it in like Bo is okay playing poker. If he's hanging out with his poker friends, they're all using the lingo. Then he goes and visits his mom and brother who don't know anything about poker and is talking about the poker game. Now Bo he's a bad example, but might explain what happened in it without using the lingo, because you understand that the people you're talking to don't know the lingo.
Yeah, well,
so
that's right.
And that's for sure the same with like the rock climbing thing. People are only using it with the other rock climbers. Like you would never say that to someone else. They'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
It would also work if I don't know, me and a bunch of people I knew moved to BC, and then I'm hanging out in mixed company, but with when I speak to my, my Ottawa area people, that we talk with the lingo that's familiar to Ottawa.
Holy Lifton.
Holy Lifton. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Or whatever, like, there's some other ones too. Chimbley, I don't know. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I know we have them. But like, you know what I mean? Like, there would be a dialect, and if I'm out there alone in British Columbia and I'm looking for if I'm in the States and I'm looking for Canadians, and I hear that lilt, and I hear and I hear I'm sorry. And then I'm like, oh, that sounds like the lingo of a Canadian. And so I think that's also possible as well. So I think it applies to regions and groups. I think
my lingo pet peeve is when things are said to make things longer but cooler, or that you think that they sound cooler. One of the things in skiing, like this is you'll say, like, if it's a beautiful day, you say it's a bluebird day. Like, and I'm like, that's longer than pretty much any way that you would just say, hey, it's a nice day.
Or it's really sunny.
What a sunny day.
What do bluebirds have to do with a nice day?
The sky is blue.
Aren't all birds of all color enjoying the nice day?
They're not all blue.
It's the sky is the total blue sky with no clouds. Like,
so blue sky day,
Yeah, but yeah.
Why is the bird blue?
I don't know. And like, I'd have to go into the Urban Dictionary and break it down. But like, it's just, for me, it's when there's certain terms where I'm like, I don't want to say they set me off, but they're just like, okay, like if somebody says, if I'm about to go down the hill and they're like, all right, send it. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's a quick little way of saying good luck. I get it. Like, what, that doesn't bother me as much as when it's like, I'm going to make this thing longer and more cumbersome to show how cool I am. That annoys me. And I'm not saying Bluebird Day is like a super long thing. It's just, it's clearly has no other purpose other than to signal that you're part of the tribe.
I would say that different tribes probably vary in temperament and characteristic, and some are more pretentious than others. Right? Like, I would say a pretentious tribe is one that goes out of its way to make very affluent or verbose terms for the sheer delight of having those things. And I'm trying to think of, like, do academics do this? You know, if you're looking academics, looking for other academics, do you hear someone going,
you got to send that paper, bro.
Not
send it.
Not send that
send
paper.
it to the publisher.
No, I'd be like, clearly not an academic. Someone would.
No, but they probably do.
They do. I went to university and I spoke with people who are just like, they're using words they just do not need to use. Like, it's to fit a role and to fill in and be a part of that tribe. And I just can't think of, you know, when you could say I went around the building, someone might say I circumnavigated the building, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy's a pretentious person.
But it's just like it always sounds that when you don't know it, like if someone is like, once you want to say, hey, see you later, and you say GG, and I'm like not in the gaming, so I'm like, you know, it might be like that. I might say that's pretentious, but it's just more like,
for sure.
You know, it's just like, again, I think we've pretty much boiled it down to what it is. It's like you're in the group, you get the lingo, you speak the language, your friends get it, and then if you're not, you're like, what the hell are those people talking about?
Let's talk about what we call the people who are in, I would say, qualified to be in the tribe, but hate lingo, like you. What is that about? So you're like, you love rock climbing, I've been doing it 20 years, I hate the lingo.
Yeah, but I'm like,
what is that? What is that?
I'm a person
You're not the
who's
only
comfortable.
one. I think
there's a lot of other people like that, but who are like me. But I'm the type of person who just likes to be against the grain. Like I realize that about myself. Like I'm like, if everyone
you don't like groupthink. Like you would never want to find yourself committing atrocities in the name of groupthink, which is a danger of tribes.
I would hope anyone would not want to find them. You know what? One day I'd love to see myself. Well, no,
you say that, but like there are people right now in the political climate who are willing to like, you know, be shitty to fellow citizens and to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do because they're part of a political spectrum, a tribe that they've decided to join. So I
will say that if I am going to commit atrocities,
maybe not atrocity,
I would rather do it as part of groupthink than just do it myself. Like that's I will
you don't
say
want to
that.
Be a lone wolf atrocity.
I would like to at least have some group that I could point to with regards to the atrocity and be like, hey, we were all doing it. But if it was if it was just me doing the atrocity, that would be the worst case scenario.
So you wouldn't want to be a racist killer, but you'd be okay being a Nazi.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not gonna take that bait.
That sounds like what you said to me. you're like, if I'm alone, I'm not racist. But if I'm a part of people that are all racist, I'm like,
if I had to commit atrocities, like I'm just saying, of those two types of atrocities, one seems less bad.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is sort of funny because this is maybe a more underlying point, because it's like lingo just spreads because it's like you go to join a group, maybe you want acceptance to that group, you start hearing the lingo, you start using the lingo because you want to be part of that group. And it's like, so yeah, most people are going to do it. Like most people at the rock climbing gym never say I'm going to climb this thing. They say I'm going to send it. And it's like, always just like, is this dumb?
What are they sending?
I look again. It's just,
see, the thing is,
ascending, Bo. They're not.
That's actually a good answer, a better answer than you've
What's red point? Red pointing is another lingo.
The thing is, I think the lingos that I'm a part of, you might find them equally as obnoxious for various reasons, but I feel like I feel like I can trace an etymology and reason for it, and everything you've brought, like I'm just like, that doesn't make sense.
What are
you sending yourself?
It does make sense and what is beta? Beta is just information and analyzing something early. That's all it is. So it's like, yes, it has an etymology.
What beta means?
Yeah. If you're beta testing a thing, it's in its early stages. Whatever.
That's not what beta means. It's because alpha came before it. It's like a numbering system. Alpha, beta, and then usually.
Yeah, but most people into climbing are probably too dumb to know about the the way that like software release actually works.
If someone told me that it's the beta of the rock climbing, I'd say, oh, so this must be you've attempted it sometimes but not made it all the way to the top, and now you've planned it out in the alpha stages, and now beta is you testing your way up.
But look, this is the point of lingo, right? Because that's not what it means in that context, and it has a root, and that root might be dumb.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what it is. I don't need you to explain this to me. I need to know why it's called. I don't know. What is it called? Can you use it again? Rock climbing, beta. Climbing.
You're gonna look it up.
There's usually a reason or some sort of logic to the etymology of like lingo, right?
Anyways. Okay, I don't want you. Are you just going to read web pages to us now about the history of beta?
Beta is climbing jargon that designates information about a climb.
See,
I would just say about something about the word lingo has been bothering me this whole time. Like it sounds like a 1960s word that it's like, hey, let's go to the club and I know all the club lingo, and it just there's something about, I think slang is the word that I was like.
No, it's a subset of all of it. Like what falls under lingo is slang and jargon and terms of phrase and vernacular. Like lingo is a broad capsule in which all of this is under.
Yeah,
that's my take on it.
Because some of that stuff I like, some of it I don't like.
But like lingo, I googled it right before this, and it just a super like the first thing that popped out was just like lingo is a way of speaking that's shared by a particular group of people. It's their own personal slang or jargon. So like whereas slang or jargon might be writ large, understood.
See how efficient that was?
See what I did there? But lingo being it's brought down to the subgroup, and that's why I thought it was an interesting topic rather than just slang, which is interesting too. But slang is broader, right?
Right.
So it's just like, again, in the lingo, and it's just so interesting that if someone wants in a group, a good way to do it is to start speaking the lingo.
Okay. I just have to pause this because you need to hear this, the origin of the term. All right. Okay. It's very important you hear this. The original use of the term beta in climbing is generally attributed to late climber Jack Milewski. Beta was short for Betamax, a reference to an old videotape format largely replaced by VHS. According to some sources, Milewski would record himself on tape while completing routes and then share these tapes with friends. According to other sources, it was actually a play on words, and Milewski would often ask, "You want the beta, Max?" So it's just a recording. That's the etymology. It's not beta testing or anything to do with computers.
That's hilarious.
It's got, but this makes sense now. This makes sense. It's just
makes sense, right?
It makes a lot of sense. It's just a joke. It's an inside joke, or like hardcore rock climbers probably know who Jack Milewski is, and they're all like beta, and they're all like nodding. And you, sir, look like a noob to them because he's like, check out that fucking Mike. He's such a cuck. He doesn't even know who Jack Milewski is when I asked him a beta. He's such a rock cuck.
We've gone through this. I think we should
get a whipper.
We have the we've got the beta out now on this.
Yeah, we went full beta.
All right,
and I don't want to suck this out anymore.
Well, I mean, we talked about the definition. Do we have other things to say about in lieu of just defining lingo and what it is?
No. I think we're.
I mean, do you guys have it? But like, what's your favorite lingo word?
Well, we could do that after our verdicts.
Yeah, let's follow. That's a great end of show follow-up.
Yeah, I think so. Crofton is trying to. Oh, excuse me. I thought that was going to be the world's largest yawn. Where you're like, I'm bored of this conversation.
No.
You want to do that?
Let's do verdicts. I'm ready. I got nothing. I think we've already been a little bit circuitous.
We spent a lot of time defining it, but I'd love to hear all of your favorite lingos because lingo's fun. The
thing is, like, when I kept thinking about it, I'm like, I don't know that many. I only mostly know it when it annoys me. I hear some lingo, and I'm like, that's annoying.
So I guess lingo. We can't have fun with it for you, and I guess
I didn't spend enough time.
We don't know what our verdicts are, so we don't know how much much we find it fun, you've already just templated the fact that you find it fun.
You like
So
Lingo.
I've got some predictions. I mean, Mike's gonna say it's bad, and Crofton is bullshit, probably.
Now you've put it right out there. I don't know.
I know it's a guess. It's not an official verdict. It's just.
and Bo is good.
see
But I'm
Let's
like,
go.
yeah, I know. I'm just like, let's talk about our favorite lingo words. Like,
Oh, we can do that after. Let's do the verdicts.
all right. Jeez,
You're already
All right,
throwing them out
all
like
right,
they're
quiet.
candy.
Here comes the bringing in the animals. Hush.
Order, I said. Order in the court.
All right, order in the court, my friends. Who would like to step up? You know, I'm going to step up first since I did all that bullshit with the verdicts.
All right.
I think that lingo is good, if not freaking awesome. I love lingo. All right, who's next?
That's it. You're not after all that diatribe.
That's it.
about, like,
I mean, I don't. There really isn't much to
Why
say
is it
about
good?
lingo.
Yeah, what's it good? What's
'Cause
good
it's
about
fun.
Why is it good?
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun.
That's it.
All
It's
right,
as
I'll
simple
go
as
next.
that.
I think lingo is bullshit. Not bad. Get the cow noise. Like it generally annoys me, just because I'm like, I think it's mostly not necessary, and I just generally don't like things that actively exclude people who are on the outs. And I still think that that's part of it, though I will say I don't think it's intentional. No one's saying like, hey, let's make some lingo so that other people don't understand what we're doing. I think it probably is rooted in good-hearted fun of people doing a shared interest and shared activity, and that's good. You know, like I got no problem with that. But then I just think there can be a lot of judgment within groups if you don't know the right lingo, or if you're not up to speed on the right lingo. There's a lot of like probably making fun of old people because they don't know the new lingo. Like it really has a lot of dynamics around. You don't know the right words, blah blah blah, and it's just like, if you want to be inclusive, just speak the language everyone understands. It's like, really, you're not losing anything. And then you might have to digress and explain to some noob why something means a certain thing, when if you just said like, I'm going to climb the route, they would know what you're talking about. But no, you got to send it. So yeah, that's me. That's me sending my verdict.
Oh damn. Okay, I see what you did there. That's GBB lingo now officially.
GG,
Crofton, send it.
Well, it's a Bluebird day. Good time for a verdict, I tell you. Little dust on crust, but I'm okay with that.
Dust on crust. Wait,
so-
before you start, what
Hey,
does
no,
dust on
I'm doing
crust
my
mean?
verdict. Stop interrupting. I got to do my verdict. You get asked later. I'm in my sanctum, my chamber. So I am going to say that lingo is bullshit.
Mhm.
And I will say that this is one of those topics that within 5 minutes we're talking about, I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally bullshit. And there was nothing that really made me push me either way, other than that sometimes there would be positive things that would come up. I think of the diversity of language. I think about like forming bonds as a subgroup or as a culture. I think Mike's points are well raised, and I think when you create any sort of gatekeeping that's done by a culture, and I see this in gaming culture a lot, like you've got to prove your bona fides as a gamer, there's a lot of toxicity, but because of that, and it's like you got to use the right terms, or if one of the most embarrassing things you see is somebody using it's not somebody not using the right lingo, it's somebody using a piece of lingo incorrectly, like blatantly incorrectly. I've seen that in places. I've done that. I think scuba diving with Mike at one point, I tried to use some of the lingo and I was completely wrong. And it is generally depending on the culture of the people that surround you. Either they're going to be really forgiving or you are going to be mocked mercilessly. I think I was forgiven, but most people, like especially online, will mock you mercilessly. And so for me, I just find that there's a lot of negative connotation there. It's often not like the fact that Mike and Bo had to go through this whole exercise to figure out what beta means, and then it wasn't what we thought it meant, and then it's like comes from this story of this guy who did this thing, And then it means like I bet you in that rock climbing gym, nobody knows what beta means. Like they know they use it. Bo's giving them the benefit of the doubt, being like, oh, they probably all know who this guy is who recorded. I bet nobody does. They just use it. And it, it gets passed on. And then it's just like, it's part of like when you're training to become a Jedi, you get all the Jedi code and all the Jedi terms or whatever. Oh, it's rock climbing. You're going to the gym, you're getting all their terms and all that. So there is a joining of the community element that's a positive, and then there's a gatekeeping of the community element that's a negative. So because of that, and because just at a very petty level, there's some there's some stuff that really drives me nuts when it comes to friggin' jargon in particular, but lingo in general. I'm going to say that it is bullshit, and that is that. And that is how you explain a verdict. Boom.
That was
Wow,
mansplaining.
you're catty today.
So
That's how you explain a bullshit verdict. See what it is?
All right. I guess you have to. The pressure's on you when you say something is bullshit, because you're actually copping out to a certain extent of either saying that it is good or bad. So you've got to kind of say why you've done that, right? So
yeah, I mean, I could have explained more, I suppose, but I'm fine with. I'll stand pat. I think that's that's some kind of lingo.
I check.
Yeah.
I check. But Bo, like, it's funny you asked what our favorite lingo is, and I don't necessarily.
Well,
like,
think about it, because we're gonna have to do the spiel before.
Oh, we got mail?
We don't have mail, but we got to do the spiel.
Mail.
All right. So
What do you think, this is a Joe Rogan podcast?
Well, they don't read mail on there either.
Easy, Sam Harris.
Just read ad.
Crofton. All right. So, listen, guys, if you want to get a hold of us, tell us what you think about lingo. I know we have a broad spectrum of opinion here, so there's got to be someone whose take you don't like. Probably Crofton's. And it's not joking. But whoever it is, doesn't matter. Email us, goodbadbull@gmail.com. Send in your emails. We loved our email we got last week from Shane. Shane, if you listened to last week, remember we told you to make a whole bunch of other different accounts and just email us all your thoughts pretending to be different people. We'll take it. But, if there's a real person out there who wants to send us your stuff, then do it. All right. And if you want to find out more about the show, somehow you're listening to this nonsense and you're just like, where do I find it on the internet? Well, you could search Good, Bad, or Bullshit, but we use $, a pound, an asterisk, and an exclamation mark at the end, making it very difficult to search. So search for Good Bad Bull, or just go to goodbadbull.com, and there you will find our website where you can listen to past episodes, subscribe. I think you could even check out some of the text and read it on the site, and find our links to our social medias, which is a Twitter, at Good Bad Bull on there, and Facebook and all that other crap. All on there. Go to goodbadbull.com. The last thing we like to do is tell people where to find individuals on our socials. That's lingo. Rather than say social media, we'll just say we're going to give you our socials now. I'm at Bo Schwartz on Twitter, or you can go to boschwartz.com, another website for you. Crofton, if our listeners want to find out more about what you're up to, where can they do that?
They can follow me on Twitter at croftonsteers.com. I mean, at croftonsteers. They could go to croftonsteers.com for all my personal info, although it will be a dead link because I haven't created a page.
You'll get there. You'll get there soon. You're on your way. Michael, if our listeners want to follow you, find out what your thoughts are, just find you, where can they do that?
Find me down at the rock climbing gym. I got some good beta on this route. I'm hoping to flash, but I'll probably just send it with a red point. But
it's a real whipper.
Anyways, yes, I have no socials.
No,
you cannot find me. That's what it comes down to.
All right,
just email Bo. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, that's some sick gnar.
Sick gnar in the char, bro.
All right, well that's it. That wraps up the end of show portion of the stuff. Now we can just have a casual conversation until we get angry and end the show.
I'm already angry. And
no, it's too early. I want to at least get one piece of lingo that you guys like, even if not love, just something.
So,
I
Bo,
don't think I like any lingo. That's my
dust
problem.
on crust is to use the parlance of skiing, is that you've gotten a hard base, often due to rain or something like that, and then you have a nice snowfall that goes on top of it. So even though it looks beautiful, and you're like, wow, look at all the snow. As soon as you get going, it starts like cracking underneath or whatever. So there's a firm crust. So it's dust, the snow, on the crust, if you will. So that is where that comes from. And actually, it is kind of a useful term. It's like, what are the conditions out there? It's dust on crust. You're like, people know right off sort of what you're talking about without having to fully explain. So
See,
I will say that
the nice
I like
thing
that.
about dust on crust, the word gets points, is that it's a rhyming lingo or
Oh,
rhyming
yeah.
slang. Like rhyming slangs are, rhyming slangs are ones that have like syllabic rhythm. Like ace in the
Yeah.
hole doesn't rhyme, but it has a syllabic, like the punctuation is like da 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 da. Like it. So anything that does that or rhymes is like an immediate bonus. So dust on crust is like, it's immediately exponentially better because of the rhyme. Mike, welcome back from wherever it is you went to. We were just dust on crust rhymes, and I was explaining how that
You
made
like
it
that?
better. Well, rhyming lingo is better than non-rhyming lingo.
I would say my favorite type of lingo is the type that will make me laugh when I hear it. If I find it funny, then it's going to get bonus points, even if I find it funny because I think it's totally ridiculous. Like, so for skiing, it's they have two terms that they use for noobs, like for big.
I was gonna show one out because
yeah.
I knew you thought you would like it.
One is called gapper.
Yeah.
And a gapper, first off, it makes me laugh when I hear it. They're just like, when somebody's like, hey, that guy's a total gapper, I start laughing right away. But then when you explain what it is, it makes me laugh even more, which is that in skiing, you wear these goggles and you wear a helmet. And I guess to be cool or to be just well covered, the idea is that you're wearing your helmet and then the goggles come like right off the bottom. There's no gap between your helmet and the goggles. If there's a gap, then the wind is hitting that gap, and also you may get a sunburn on that gap, so that you're walking around and you've got this giant sunburn mark on your forehead, and that, my friend, means you are a gapper. So gapper makes me laugh, and it is a good one.
What's the other one?
The other one is Jerry. Jarry. So Jerry is the new sort of thing.
Is that not because when I hear that, I think of people would say Jerry and refer to Jerry's Kids, which was like a kind of slam on children with developmental. So it seemed to me, I thought that was a sort of
Jerry's are that, or aren't Jerry's like somebody that the States was at war with and they called them the damn Jerry's are invading? Wasn't that a thing too?
I'm surprised, Crofton, you didn't go. Yeah,
I spelled Jerry wrong. It's Jerry, and my brother would follow this thing, and I think honestly, Jerry is like, there's some guy named Jerry, and he was a noob, and like it's just gone crazy. Now there's the term Jerry is used outside of just skiing, and they have this my brother follows this Twitter or whatever called the Jerry of the Day, and it's always like some video of somebody doing some really dumb skiing, but there's Jerry of the Day websites and Jerry of the Day, so I think it's beyond skiing. But when when people are saying that guy's a real Jerry or that guy's a real gapper or whatever, it always makes me laugh. So lingo that makes me laugh, that's my favorite type of lingo.
I'm surprised you didn't go down a rabbit hole of wrestling lingo, because I'm sure there's a ton.
I did not even think of that, Mike.
Because there's a ton of that stuff.
Yeah, a jobber, a heel, turned heel.
It's all lingo.
Yeah.
Before you get into that, you guys can continue, but I actually have to go.
Yeah, no, let's wrap up the show because I was just about to do a quiz.
I can't believe it. I changed my verdict to good. God, talk about a face turn.
Man, Crofton, Bible thump.
Oh, man.
All right.
It's
Well,
funny you
anyways.
don't think of a culture or whatever, but
Too
that's
late,
yeah.
Crofton.
All right, I think
show.
before end the show. Before Crofton gets too enthusiastic about wrestling, we're gonna end it there.
That's it.
End it.
Okay.
It's just you know what the problem is with end the show, Mike, is that we do it 2 weeks and Crofton does it the best. He goes end the show, and it's always the best.
End the show, Bo. End it.